Again, all that you hope to accomplish as a team in a regular season has been accomplished before the regular season even ends. So that's how good of a season it's really been for the 49ers. And it's really been a great couple of seasons for the 49ers. And we've seen, an awful lot of people and pundits and media folk, just complain and rain criticism from the high heavens upon the choices that this front office has made, the way Kyle goes about executing a game plan, which, like anything, if you want to nitpick it, if you want to find something that you don't like, you can look at it and find something that you don't like. But what you will find is a historically prolific, spread the ball around, share it with everyone NFL offense. And Larry, that's where we start our Just the Facts, maybe our most famous of all of our segments here on Wake Up. The 49ers, before we get into the individual numbers, just as a team, with 4 players surpassing 1,000 yards from scrimmage and Brock Purdy being over the 4,000-yard mark, the 49ers became the 4th team in NFL history to have a quarterback with 4,000 or more passing yards and 4 players with 1,000 or more yards from scrimmage. Beyond that, if you'd like something that is just theirs alone, they've done that too, Larry. The 49ers are the first team in NFL history to have a running back, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, each post 1,000 or more yards from scrimmage in a single season. So, one of the common criticisms is Shanahan tries to do too much. He should get into a game and he should stick with something that works until it doesn't work. And there's a part of me that does agree with that. Really, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Kyle has become the best in football at spreading it around and making you wonder as an opponent where the next punch is coming from. And they did so in historical, prolific fashion all regular season long. And remember, the regular season isn't even over.
It's unbelievable what they've been able to accomplish this year. And you think about this being, you said something early on about this could be Kyle's finest year. He had to deal with the landmine of the guy we thought was the guy at quarterback isn't the guy. The guy that we lucked into at quarterback is the guy. And how do we commit to the guy that we didn't think was the guy and somehow part ways with the guy that we thought was the guy and spent a lot of money and draft picks to acquire because we told our owner he was the guy? How do we, how do we surf that whole wave and, successfully? And they've done it. What Purdy's
would pick to that degree, you better come back with some sort of historic evidence that we made the right choice after all. And they've got that in spades.
Exactly. They were going to be questioned. And, it's funny, when we showed up in training camp, the one thing that was clear as day to me was that Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, 3 of their top weapons, were all in big-time shape, primed for career years. We said it. We talked about it. We analyzed it on a day-to-day basis. But It was really clear with McCaffrey in minicamp, and then it was really clear starting in training camp that Deebo was in great shape and Ayuk was having an all-timer and that McCaffrey was going to have his best year. And just that alone gave you confidence that this was going to be a good offensive year. But you still had a big question on your offensive line. You still had a big question at quarterback, and Kyle made it all happen, and it all came together, and they got just enough out of their offensive line, and Purdy became a star. Let's be honest. We can talk about Brock Purdy, the last pick, Mr. Irrelevant, but this guy passed Joe Montana, Steve Young, Jeff Garcia. He goes 22 of 28 yesterday for 230 and 2 touchdowns, 4,280 yards on the season. The guy has gone from, just a guy who's, getting reps behind Nate Sudfeld to the most prolific passer in any single season in the history of this storied franchise.
Right. The team that in our lifetimes reinvented the topic of quarterback, the single most prolific passing season in the history, isn't Joe Montana. It's not Steve Young, and it's not Jeff Garcia. It's Brock frickin' Purdy.
And don't let anybody tell you that, oh, well, it's modern football and this and that. He did it in 16 games.
Right.
The same way that those guys accomplished their yardage total in 16 games, prior to the NFL adding the 17th game. So it's like, yes, he played in the 17 game era, but he did it in 16 games.
Right. Now, so the word asterisk in San Francisco sounds like a badge of shame because it was associated with Barry and steroids and blah, blah, blah. Asterisk was just, let's point out something was different between those times and that time. There is no Roger Maris going on here. It wasn't a 17th game that made Brock Purdy get all these numbers and records. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact we're not even going to see Brock Purdy in that 17th game, right? I mean, you got to start Sam Darnold against the Rams. That's why Sam is here. So, and again, I actually think that will be a good thing for the 49ers coming out in the wash of the postseason as well. God forbid something happened to Purdy and he goes down in any way, shape, or form. Darnold getting some real live reps in a game that matters, in actual moments of a football game that matter, not just victory formation, is good for everything that goes into the postseason. So that's a good thing too. You were talking about Brandon Ayuk, and again, it's always quarterback or defensive stars. And I feel like we haven't discussed Ayuk enough. And Ayuk certainly has separated himself from just about all other wide receivers in franchise history. And this is a team that, again, has had some very special wide receivers in franchise history. Brandon Ayuk has 7 games this season with 100 or more receiving yards. That's the third most in team history. Jerry had 9 in 95. Jerry had 8 in 89. And Jerry had 7 in 1990. And Brandon Ayuk is now tied with that 1990 season of Jerry Rice for 7 games with 100 or more receiving yards. So when you're on a list with only Jerry Rice, that's a pretty good list to be on as a wide receiver for the 49ers.
No doubt. And to me, Ayuk, unbelievable. Wasn't it his 600-yard day of the season? It
was 7th, Larry.
7th 100-yard day of the season?
7.
Oh, okay. They said on the broadcast 6th. But yeah, I mean, the touchdown from Purdy to Ayuk was just a thing of beauty. And it really, it showed, I mean, this season showed what a tough guy Ayuk really is, but also to me the signature play in some ways of this season may have been in this Commanders game, simply from the standpoint of you have Purdy kind of showing that what makes him the quarterback that he is.
Right, escapability.
It's that athleticism, and it's the escapability, and it's the quickness, and it's the play extending quickness that he showed. He spun out of pressure there. He finds Brandon Ayuk. He directs him to an open spot, and then he delivers a strike right on the money. It was the late in the down throw that Jimmy Garoppolo could not make that kept the cap on the Niners offensively, and despite the presence of Shanahan and all these weapons, is Jimmy couldn't make the late in the down play that Brock makes repeatedly.
I mean, you're quoting Greg Cosell verbatim right there, right?
Yeah, I mean, Greg, it's funny. I always joke about, they've now created all these soft ways of saying you failed, right? He's not there's a lot of, guy used to be a hacker. Now there's a lot of swing and miss in his game. There's a little bit too much swing and miss in his game when they're talking about a bad hitter. And yeah, I mean, this is another example of that. But yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy, really bounced back. I mean, this was the big question coming into this game was going to be the Ravens showed like how to beat Brock Purdy. And at least they claim they did, right? Which is flood windows that he typically likes to throw in the intermediate and down the field, in the middle of the field with all kinds of extra bodies, and force him to make throws outside. And Washington copied that formula to some degree, and he was forced to make some plays outside, and he looked a little uncomfortable early, but he adjusted. And, that was the question, is like, did the Niners have the answers to the defensive wrinkles that the Ravens kind of showed? And I think in this game, they kind of proved that they did.
Well, against the caliber of the Commanders secondary, I don't know if it's exactly a straight draw one line through the next. I mean, the Commanders found themselves deep into their secondary's depth chart before the game even started, and then it got worse for them in the game.